We've been doing this for a long time. We're going to teach people about the world they lost. Help them start to rebuild it.
All right, I want to welcome my brother, my older brother, Elcid. Welcome back to the podcast, man.
Thank you.
It's good to have you back in person.
Always a pleasure.
The last episodes that we had together, I think it was episode 2, if I remember right, way back then. But that was something that we recorded maybe September, October of 2020.
2020. Wow.
Yeah. And then we just had this kind of recap session, and that kind of became episode 10 with Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
I think we mentioned in episode 2 about you being a filmmaker and the art of storytelling and controlling narratives. I remember as a kid, growing up, you had this one video game. It was called Movies on your PC. And if I think back to you as a filmmaker and what shaped you as a filmmaker, I always go back to that because it was like super old. Even the graphics on it were super old. It was on a laptop that, like our first laptops that mom and dad bought us.
Acer
laptops.
Yeah.
So the slowest things ever. But I remember you were able to recreate so many scenes from iconic movies. And a lot of people don't know how far back you go with filmmaking. And I would just, I want to highlight that definitely. And I guess influences are huge with any artist, especially nowadays. Who are your influences? How did you even get into the art of filmmaking and cinema?
Oh, wow. Influences can come in like so many different forms. Going back to what you were saying about the video game, so it was called The Movies.
Yeah.
And it was almost like The Sims, but the object of the game was you were supposed to open up a production studio in 1940 and hire actors, hire writers, and make a whole production studio work and make money. It was like Roller Coaster Tycoon meets The Sims.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds. Well, why 1940 though? Is that a specific year?
1940 was actually a really great year in film. 1939, Gone with the Wind came out, and it's still one of the highest grossing movies, if not the highest grossing movie of all time.
Oh,
due to inflation, with inflation adjustment. But no, yeah, the object of the game was just to kind of be a movie mogul and producer and own a studio. But it had a feature where you could design scenes and move the camera, and you can, shape the actors, put costumes, and so I just jumped on that. And I started. I found fun in just recreating old movies, and yeah, I don't know. It was kind of like a little makeshift film school because I would watch old films from like John Ford, Howard Hawks, Orson Welles, and just kind of see the choices that they would make and recreate them, not necessarily knowing why they would make them, but it just helped me to understand filmmaking through their eyes. So it really helped me as far as like shaping me as a filmmaker and director. But to be honest, I think my filmmaking journey really goes all the way back to when we were kids. One of the first things I remember recording was we would record our toys. I would just play toys. I would record wrestling matches between Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And then, in a way, those are stories themselves, right? And that's, that was always something that I would just spend all my time doing. And I always loved storytelling. If there was anyone that was a major influence on me as a storyteller, I guess I would have to say first and foremost is Jesus Christ. Like,
oh damn, yeah.
Jesus as a storyteller was a huge influence for me. He was able to, connect with a lot of people, and obviously he was able to connect, and he was able to, relay ideas and philosophies. Back in those days, people didn't think that way. And the way you would help people understand you and create empathy is by telling stories, in their words, parables, right?
Yeah.
In Jesus's time. So, I mean, yeah, that's as far as back as it influences you go. And then, I think everyone as a filmmaker goes through this college phase where, they find a filmmaker that they like a film, and for me, that was movies like Seven.
Yeah.
Like David Fincher's Seven, Fight Club. We were going to movies in the early 90s, and one of my first movie going experiences, I was just thinking about this last night. Mama took me, Uncle Jay, and Rio. I don't think you were there, but it was like in the afternoon on a weekday, and we watched Robin Hood Men in Tights, 1993.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Right, and I was 6 years old, and I remember being in the theater. We came late, and we had to sit in the first tier, where you're kind of looking up. But we walked in, and it was just, we were late, and it was like a rap going on, and they were just describing the story.
Robin, the beginning, yeah.
Robin was in prison and stuff. And the funny thing is that I never saw Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves until after that movie. And that movie, Mel Brooks was spoofing Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah.
So all the jokes were spoofing that. But I went into that movie just kind of knowing Robin Hood. That's it.
Yeah.
And it was just a funny movie with Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
Achu,
Mel Brooks. Achu, bless you. It was one of my first movie going experiences, and just feeling the audience laugh, laughing together with my grandma, her trying to cover my eyes when Maid Marian, Amy Asbeck, was in the bathtub, singing about finding her true love.
Yeah.
It was such a, innocent little fun story and little fun movie. And I always remembered it. Since then, I've always found different influences.
No, and that speaks to something that you have brought up in the past, that that moment, it brings people together when you're watching a movie or a film together, and it brings up those emotions and like just the joy and the laughter. Mm-hmm. It's an experience with people, and I mean that, tracing back to when you were young, like with Mama, with our uncles and aunties, it was a moment that you'll always remember now.
Yeah, it's a lasting impression, and it's shaped who I am going down the years, as a kid from 6 years old. Because then, Dad would, at like family parties, Dad would throw the camera in my hand, like the video camcorder.
Yep.
And instead of me filming everything that's going on and trying to document, I would just create stories. I would just try to follow someone and make it like some sort of, horror film, or like a newscaster and stuff like that. And or we would go to the pool room and we would play pool. And
that's right.
I remember, one of the first things I cut together, it wasn't really editing. I would just record. I would tell you like, hey, all right, break, record, and then I would stop recording, and then I would zoom in on one of the
pockets. Yeah.
And we would just push the balls in, and then push, and then we would zoom out, and then the whole table was empty, and we were just like, that was easy.
I remember that one for sure. Yeah.
Like, it's like the magic of movies.
I wonder if we can find those videos again.
I'm sure. Oh man, I don't know. It's probably in a.
I remember that specific one though.
Yeah.
It was like a Christmas party or Thanksgiving that we had, and then it was up in the game room.
Yeah, we were just messing around, and it's just the magic of filmmaking. At the end of the day.
True.
But when it all comes down to it, I think you just want to express yourself. You want to share who you are, and with storytelling, we realize we're all so different. We're all so unique. We all have different perspectives and ideas and feelings and emotions. And then storytelling reminds us we're all the same deep down. That we're all the same, and we're all in the same boat, and we can all relate to each other.
Yeah, it all relates.
So, yeah, there's something magical about it.
So starting off with that experience as a kid, and then you start realizing you're able to express yourself through like making little short clips and films. At what point did you realize the importance of how you could do it and how it reaches people? Mm-hmm. And I would imagine any art form, it's like you start like you're doing it because you have fun, and then you start realizing that, you know, there's a deeper meaning behind everything. There's a theory behind everything. And then now with all the tools, you feel like you can shape something now in your art form to relay a message. And I think you touched on, I mean, obviously the greatest storyteller, you know, arguably is Jesus Christ. What was the why? Why do I need to tell stories now? Why do filmmakers tell stories?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to expression. You know, as a kid, I was pretty, you know, shy and lonely. I felt like I was kind of like awkward. You know, I didn't know how to communicate to people and relate to people right away. You know, it felt like a lot of people were like cooler than me, right? They're just cooler to hang out. People listen to them.
Yeah.
And for me, I think the best way for me to express myself was just creating, you know, fun little comedy short films or like jokes. And it all goes back to like, I started off as more of like an actor. Like I always wanted to be an actor. And, you know, mom, dad, mama, they would always have me do Jim Carrey impressions.
Yeah.
And, you know, just getting the laughter through that. And, you know, when Dumb and Dumber was out, I would just, you know, reenact scenes from Dumb and Dumber, The Mask. And yeah, people would laugh and they would ask me to do it at every family party. You know, as a kid, I was like 7, 8 years old. And just that performance, there's a high in there. And I think that high comes from being heard. I think that that high comes from connecting with people and knowing that in some level they know a little bit of me, and in some level we understand that we're laughing at the same thing, so we're connecting and we're similar in some way.
Dang.
It's really that connection.
Yeah, you make the connection between like expressing yourself and creating emotions in other people.
Yeah. You go through this emotion of like, you express yourself and there's this fear of like being rejected. There's this fear of someone laughing at you.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
And then
Everybody feels that.
yeah, and it's like it's scary, thrilling all at the same time. You put yourself out there. And then when you get this feedback of people laughing at the parts that you want them to laugh at, people crying at the parts that you want them to cry at, there's this feeling of, wow, like we're the same, you know? And I understand you and you understand me. And yeah, there's something beautiful about that.
I would say that's very delicate, because now you realize you can influence someone's emotions and even the way they think. You open up ideas for people. I would say that's a double-edged sword now, where because of that, like you can, I guess, you know, quote unquote, like power over people's emotions. Like you can influence someone in a certain way. How do you find the line where, you know, you don't want to impose specific things, like when something's like I don't know, biased or not? How do you find the line of expressing yourself fully but not trying to affect the world in a negative way or a specific way you don't want people to think?
That's definitely a line that's there anytime we're communicating with each other, right? In film, they call it propaganda.
Yeah.
And they also call it parables and preaching, right? Because you're trying to, you know, impose ideas on people and change the way people think, you know. And you know, some filmmaking is like that, and some people want that. They want to learn something, and they want to, you know, rewire themselves. But I think the best filmmaking really is just putting your heart out there, and for everyone to see, and for them to see that their heart isn't that different, you know, and put themselves in a situation where they can kind of learn more about who they are. So it's like you have to stay out of that. You have to stay out of your own way. You know, trying to change people, trying to manipulate people is a different game, and it doesn't pay off all the time. And at the end of the day, you're kind of defeating your own purpose, because you're not being yourself. You're not trying. You're trying to change people when you're really losing that connection. You're losing that expression.
Yeah.
Right.
The pureness of the art.
Yeah.
If anything.
Pureness. You know, and like as far as like influences, like that's where, you know, people like when I was growing up, like people like Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, obviously, you know, like the typical Star Wars, George Lucas. They always, with Scorsese, he taught me that with image, you can put people into situations and emotions through, juxtaposition, and they feel it. They feel something, and they decide whether or not they decide whether or not they like it and whether or not they would do it. Like Goodfellas. I've never been a gangster in New York and Queens.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I know what it's like, and through that tale, I understand, the cautionary tale of, living that kind of life, living that immoral life, but you understand that they had to do what they had to do to survive, The Godfather, and like in The Godfather and, stuff like that. But yeah, it's really just that emotion of using film to express yourself. That's the number one thing with great filmmakers to me. They're always asking something, and they're always trying to find more about who they are. Alfred Hitchcock was one of the best filmmakers as far as like quote unquote manipulating an audience. He was able to guide an audience's emotions through image and through storytelling, and be able to guide them into like a scare, or to guide them into a place where they wouldn't necessarily normally want to be, but they learn something about themselves and they feel something. I think that's at the end of the day, you just want to feel,
Yeah.
feel like you're alive.
Yeah. And with those stories, like you mentioned, like we were never, a gangster in New York or whatever, but having that story being told to us, there's so many things that we can relate to as far as like the everyday life. And it's almost that, it's always like a cautionary tale that we learn from, where you see the mistakes of other people. Mm-hmm. What did they say? Like a good guy, a good person or a smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
Yeah.
And it ultimately makes all of us wiser on how we go about the everyday life and how we deal with people. Mm-hmm. Like you see someone else's mistakes, or you see not the mistakes, but how they go about something, and then you see the result in a quick like hour and a half, 2 hours, and that does relate to certain situations in my life, and how should I go about this, or what type of character should I bring to a situation. It does shape us in that way.
It guides us.
Yeah.
And in a way, the best films really display humanity, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're not just telling a story about a guy or a girl, joining a gang or, doing something. It's humanity, and it's in their choices. It's in how they react to things and what life throws at them. We don't know what life's going to throw at us, but seeing how they react to it teaches us a little bit about humanity. So yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. We learn ourselves on a human level.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Obviously we reach so many people now with different platforms, and the thing about like what we're talking about as far as film, there's so much depth and purity in that art form, where I don't know, what do you think about nowadays, and how lately things have been very quick, like TikToks and Vines, stories, reels, and I would say it's very quick to get people emotional now because of these platforms, social media, things like that. Where's the line? How do we keep the heart and the purity of cinema in a day like this?
I think, the world is getting so saturated with different media, right? And I think that's the problem, but it's not necessarily a problem unless you run out of room for everything. And I think we need to just keep tradition. We need to keep everything, I'm not saying TikToks are bad. I'm not saying Instagram is bad. I'm saying that there's room for it.
Yeah.
And just because, TikTok, it's a video, it's not necessarily a film.
Yeah.
It's different. It's not necessarily filmmaking, and there's a difference between like commercial jingles and Mozart compositions.
True.
Right? There's music and there's music. They're both music.
True.
But, Mozart's Mozart.
Yeah.
Right? And, Smelly Cat is also music, but it's fun,
Yeah.
and they each have their place in this world. That's the one thing that we have to remember. It's like, it's not about like, oh, mine's better than yours, or this is real and this isn't real. This is film. This isn't cinema.
Yeah.
It's about helping each other and, consuming everything to help and nourish, society and nourish humanity. So yeah, there's room for everything. But with TikToks, the danger is that you don't want to just abuse it in a way. I mean, well, let's go back. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all trying to just communicate with each other, right?
Yeah.
We're all just trying to communicate with each other and trying to express ourselves. And how you do that is up to you. And how best you do that is up to you. So if it's through TikTok, through dancing, through, Instagram videos, YouTube videos, then by all means do it, communicate, express, share, help each other.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. If it's helping, that's all that matters.
And even if people do that and they get some gratification from that, maybe even financial means through it, obviously it's a good thing. I think there always should be a respect for the pure art form of film. Because people say nowadays, with your iPhone, you can take amazing pictures. Mm-hmm. Is it photography though? Right? And I think, is it capturing the essence of photography? I mean, arguably, there's all angles on that.
Yeah.
But the respect for the filmmaking and cinema, I wouldn't say it's a trade-off. Like you said, there's room for it. Mm-hmm. Now, when you make films now, there's way more technology now and all these things. What parts of the old way of making film do you bring to this generation in this time?
Nothing's changed. No matter how advanced technology can get and what we can do, filmmaking has a very core essence to it. 1994, I've never seen a dinosaur eat a car, right?
Yeah, true.
And nowadays we're so wise to filmmaking. Everyone in general, they know you can do anything. You can do literally anything. You can create worlds. You can create universes. You can bend time. You can break it.
Dude.
So it's not necessarily about what you can do. It's about what you don't do, right? And with filmmaking, it's about making choices on what you want to say.
Wait, say that again. It's not about what you can do. It's what you don't. What you choose not to do.
What you choose not to do. What you leave out, right? Because they know you can do anything. They're not, we know anything is possible. So by excluding what's not necessary to your story, what's not necessary to your emotion, you narrow down what you really want to say. So it's the real tightrope isn't how good can I make this and what can I do? The real tightrope is how can I focus my vision? What do I need? What do I not need to tell this story? Wow. And that's what I mean when it goes down to an essence of filmmaking. At the end of the day, it's about image, sound, and humanity and emotion. That's it. You don't need a techno crane to tell every story. You don't need a gimbal to shoot every video. All you need is a good story and, the love to say it, to tell it, right? Yeah. In the way that it should be told.
Yeah. I'm completely oblivious to everything that goes into a film. That's the problem. That's why when we watch a film together, we talk about a movie that just came out or whatever. It's super insightful for me to hear your take on even a shot in a film, where there are things I'm super oblivious to, why it was included in the shot. And when you would explain to me a certain film, there was a scene or a shot and that book in the background was intentionally put there or part of the story. And it affected me whether I knew it or not. And it's super interesting because now, you explained to me the depth of everything that we watch now. And now every time I watch a movie, I think of the way they shot it. Mm-hmm. And I don't need to know all the technical stuff and cranes and but at that point, why is it now I think, why did they shoot it from a top angle or a lower angle? It portrays something different. It invokes a different emotion in the scene, and it's intentional. Mm-hmm. And when you explain the intention of each part, this is why the director did that, it started making me realize the depth of this. And like with music, like
Yeah.
small intricate sounds like that, those are the things that I studied when we were younger.
Exactly.
But it's all the same.
Yeah.
Art is all the same. And
expression.
And paintings, like why those colors and why in that stroke. And that's the beauty of art.
In a way, filmmaking for me was a way of doing all of that together. We started in music, right? We were in bands, and we know that G major is nice sounding. It's beautiful. It's positive.
Yeah.
Versus F minor, right, or E minor.
Yeah.
It's kind of has this different feeling. You evoke emotion through music.
Man, I always go back to Hallelujah, man. The minor fall and the major lift.
Major lift.
Fucking love that line. It's so
composing.
true, though.
Yeah. I mean, and there's something, magical about that, right? It's unspoken. Music connects us to our souls.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't know how, we don't know. There's just something, you hear a piece of music, you feel it. I love this scene in Shawshank Redemption where, they're stuck in the prison, and then Andy Dufresne, he breaks in to the office, and he plays, I think it's La Noce de Figaro, right? The like a piece of the opera, and the entire prison just freezes, and they just close their eyes and they listen to this woman singing in opera. And I think Morgan Freeman read, he says, "Until this day, I don't know what that woman was singing about."
Yeah.
But it was the most beautiful thing, I've ever heard. And and it's like, in a way, it transported them outside of that prison. Man, and there's something so, magical about that. Transporting someone into their past. You hear a song on the radio, it's like, man, you immediately jump into a memory where I'm riding in a car Sunday morning, Ryan Seacrest Top 100, right? And it's like, dude, every morning, Sugar Ray, like that was playing every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm back as like a kid listening to that song.
Yeah.
It's transportive. So with filmmaking, it's everything. Art is transportive, and you evoke emotion, and you evoke feeling, you evoke memory, you evoke, desire. And with that, so understanding that, it's in filmmaking, you have to be very delicate about what emotions you're trying to elicit, right? I mean, if we're going to get technical with it, colors evoke emotion. Red has this fire, anger, energy.
Yeah.
Blue is very calming. Yellow is warm. We don't know why, but it's a tool. It's a tool. And that's the tools where I say the fundamentals and the essence of cinema that will never change. No matter how technical we can get with our cameras, 18K, whatever. At the end of the day, music, image, color, sound can elicit feeling and emotion. And that's what we play with. That's what you do. So like when you say that there's a book in the background, no one's going to see it on the first go, but but it's there. It's in the frame, and I know the term mise en scène.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, or mise en scène.
Yeah.
And it's, Scorsese describes it as what is in the frame. What is in the frame, what is outside of the frame is cinema. And what a director or what a storyteller, filmmaker chooses to put in the frame has to have importance, because we're consuming it all together. What we hear, what we see, it elicits that feeling. And if a scene is bathed in red, you're eliciting a specific emotion, right? So, you just have to play with those tools. And once you understand that those are the tools in your toolbox, then you can really start building things.
Yeah.
So that's where the choices come in. It's like, all right, I'm trying to elicit an angry emotion. Do I want to shoot? Is he wearing blue? Are they in a blue room or are they in a red room? Right. Like Mean Streets, one of my favorite movies. You're going to hear a lot about Scorsese.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, Mean Streets, the bar that the friends hang out with, in the movie, it's about 4 friends in Little Italy. They hang out in a bar and it's always red. The light is red. I think when I saw this film, that's when I started to understand that there's a way to express ideas through image without actually saying it, right?
Yeah.
Because typically when we're younger, we think, all right, we just have to say it so people understand the idea. But every time De Niro or Keitel go into the bar, it's red. And they go out, they go to church, it's bright and it's clear. And, it kind of elicits this feeling that the bar is their area of, dirty deeds. This is where the deals go down. This is where violence happens. This is where, the sins happen, and in church, it's bright, it's sunny. There's light on top of everything. The first line in that film is that, sins, you don't make up for your sins in church. You make up for it in the streets. The rest is bullshit. And just hearing that first line, it already sets a tone. And and the first shot is Keitel walking down the aisle of a church, and it's bright, it's beautiful, and he's praying to God, like, hey, make me I want to be a better person, basically. Then the next scene, immediately he's in a bar, red light, dancing, naked women, people drinking, people fighting. And it's just like that juxtaposition of, all right, here's church and here is the streets. And where is he going to make up for it? Is him praying in the church going to make up for his sins, or him going into the streets and changing people? Is that how he's going to make up for his sins? Is that how he's going to serve God? Right. And just see that right there. You don't have to agree with it, but I got that idea.
Yeah.
I understood it just by color, just by juxtaposition, just by, sound.
Even without words. Yeah.
Without words, basically. So that's the beauty of filmmaking, is that it's a sandbox that you can put many ideas and expression.
Yeah, I would say that. Nowadays, especially because of COVID, the actual cinema where people go to, the movie theaters that we can go to get those experiences on the big screen. I haven't been to a theater in maybe over a couple of years. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
Even before 2020?
Yeah. Well, when Gracie was pregnant, before COVID, like, she had a hard time sitting down in, staying seated in a theater. So
for that long.
Even then, we rarely watched, movies in a theater.
Do you remember the last movie you actually saw in the theater?
I know. I'm trying to think back to it. I feel like, what was it? It was a I don't know, like something 2019, end of 2019 probably.
It was probably like a Pixar movie or something.
It might have been a Disney one.
Inside Out or something.
Something like that.
But no, Moana, maybe.
Maybe. I feel like it was a Disney movie or something. Or like a family film. Yeah. But with Netflix and, HBO Max, things are easily streamed at home now.
Yeah.
The problem that I have now is there's too many to choose from. Where, it's like, like back then when you have your iPod and it's like you have your CD list and you hate listening to the radio, like I have my songs. I can't even choose what movie to watch anymore because there's like too much to choose from.
Yeah.
And that's why I say like I'm paralyzed because I don't know what direction I want to take, and I know that films will influence my emotions. I don't want to ask you like what should I watch? It's more of because of this oversaturation, like there's so many choices now. Mm-hmm. How do you pick films?
Oh, well, it's funny because I was actually, years ago, like almost a decade ago, I was trying to come up with this app called the Movie Picture Prescription.
I remember that.
Right?
Like the movie doctor or something like that.
The movie doctor, yeah. And I wanted to, it's like, you would fill out a form. Like, what is your illness? Like a survey? Like, what's your illness, right? Like, what is your visit for today?
Oh, it's like heartbreak. Do you
want to learn about, nature? And it's like, it would guide you to a movie that would help you with that. It's like Life of Pi, or, you have a heartbreak, so it's going to guide you to Harold and Maude or something like that.
That was like more than 15 years ago you were talking about that.
Yeah, that would have been
I wonder if someone ever did something like that.
I'm sure there is. And then, I'm not a coder, so algorithms have taken over that, where they kind of see your habits on what movies you choose to watch.
Yeah.
So they through the algorithm, the boring thing is they find a recommendation for you. It's
like you based on your tendencies.
Yeah, because you saw Breaking Bad, you might like Better Call Saul.
Oh, true.
Stuff like that. But no, the way I choose movies, I always started with the filmmaker, and well, it starts with the filmmaker and with the actors, right? I would watch Brad Pitt movies because I loved Brad Pitt as an actor. Fight Club, Seven, Ocean's 11, right? So if Brad Pitt had a movie coming out, I would keep my eye on it, which got me to Troy. I watched Troy. Everyone did, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's Brad Pitt.
It's Brad Pitt,
It's freaking Brad Pitt. But no, yeah, I started with like Quentin Tarantino, right? I loved Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs. So any new thing he comes out with, I would watch, right? But the real way I really got into cinema was going backwards, like finding their influences, right?
Oh,
Tarantino is a great gateway drug into film because his films are so peppered with references and homages that it's like, all right, you watch Kill Bill, it's like where did he get all this? And then you see the Chinese kung fu films in the past, a lot of like his films like Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs. He's straight up said he's trying to do for the crime genre what Scorsese did for the gangster genre. So I was like, oh, who's this Martin Scorsese? You go back to Scorsese, you watch, Taxi Driver, you go back, you watch Raging Bull, and then, then you learn about like, okay, why did he make Taxi Driver? Why did he make Boxcar Bertha? And it's like his influence was, Jean-Luc Godard or, Francois Truffaut. Then you go backwards into Godard and Truffaut, you watch Breathless, you watch The 400 Blows, and then you learn Francois Truffaut, his hero is Alfred Hitchcock. You go back to Alfred Hitchcock, you watch Psycho, you watch The Birds, you watch Rear Window, Vertigo, and then you think, all right, well, like, how did he come up with his style? Then, it just kind of branches off into things like Steven Spielberg. Everyone knows Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
George Lucas, Star Wars.
True.
Not many people know Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Star Wars was based off of Hidden Fortress. So I watched, Seven Samurai. I watched Rashomon. Rashomon was one of the first feature films by Kurosawa. That's an influence on Aaron Sorkin now. That's an influence on any kind of film that has different vantage points. So it's a web. It's a web of everything.
And the way that you went backwards now makes more sense to me because before nursing, I was at Cal State San Bernardino. I was kind of clueless of where I wanted to go. And at that point, to be a full-time student, you just picked up classes, whatever was available. The one that was available at that time was Art of Film. Oh, so I took that class.
I remember. I remember that.
Yeah, I barely passed that class because
you gave me your textbook.
Yeah. See, but the thing is, they started with Hitchcock. I think it was Rear Window. And that was like first day of class. We're gonna watch this. Okay, I was like, okay, like at that moment, it was kind of like, all right, this is like an old ass movie. Like it doesn't. I mean, I think colors was a big thing at that point when they made that movie.
1960s. Yeah.
Yeah. So when they were showing that, I was like, okay, like, and we're studying it. They talked about mise en scène and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, but it wasn't interesting to me. It didn't grab me the way that you're explaining it now. Like if you watch Star Wars and you're interested in like Jedi.
Yeah, how did that
it brings you back to like samurai and the philosophy of like that, the Eastern philosophy of samurai. And when you work backwards, it almost makes more sense to me now. Like that's how we are all influenced in whatever art form. Like, you like this, you like this artist now, who were their influences and then who influenced them. Yeah. And it brings you back to the history of it.
Exactly.
And the depth.
History. And anthropology.
Yeah.
And like going like with music, there's that great scene in School of Rock where he's trying to teach them music.
Oh yeah.
And he has like punk rock here, he has classic rock here, and
and
it's all like a web that connects. Like that's Oasis doesn't exist because of the Beatles, you know? And the Beatles like branch out into rock, into folk, and it's just like, art is so connected.
Yeah.
So that's really just how I kind of just find movies that I want to watch. And, with new movies, I hear, there's a new movie coming out by Wes Anderson, The French Dispatch, coming out. And it's just like, dude, I didn't get into Wes Anderson until later, and the way I got into Wes Anderson, Scorsese said, someone asked Scorsese, if there's anyone in filmmaking right now that is the next Martin Scorsese, who is it? And I was like, all right, it's probably P.T. Anderson or Quentin Tarantino. He said Wes Anderson. And as a kid, I didn't really understand it. I was like, why Wes Anderson? He looks nothing like, his films look nothing like Martin Scorsese's. And I realized it's more of like, I'm kind of going into a tangent here. But yeah, Scorsese was basically saying that Wes Anderson is a filmmaker that expresses himself through image and editing in a very rhythmic way that Scorsese does in his films. You know, he uses slow-mos, he uses music to highlight emotions. And Wes Anderson does that to a T now that I've studied him. You know, they may not look the same, but their approach to telling stories is very similar. And,
wow.
And I think more than anything, I think Scorsese likes or he respects Wes Anderson in that way, that he expresses himself as himself. He doesn't, you know, he takes his influences and he makes it his own, and he tells stories with those influences. Which
is the admirable part about all these. Like, this is what you admire about artists.
100%,
that they take their influences and create their own. I mean, that reverse deconstruction and hearing the influences is so important now, because there's so much to choose from. And I think it definitely is something that we should be doing, like going back to the past and how things created back then, how they influence what's created now. And I mean, I don't think cinema is like completely gone, but I mean, I would argue because of streaming, like I was mentioning, I don't go to theaters anymore. Are they still trying to make theaters functioning again? I mean,
they're trying.
Can cinema be resuscitated, if anything?
It's definitely on its deathbed, you know, and they're bringing in the paddles, I think, you know, and that's the sad truth. Streaming, you know, at home, it's a cinema going experience. Is it the same cinema as when we went to watch Titanic? Probably not. You know, it's a different experience. So yeah, that experience of going to the cinema is dying. Cinema itself is evolving and growing and changing. A lot of cinema purists are very adamant about trying to keep the traditions, for sure. But some of the best filmmakers really take what's new and apply it to the old traditions. It's about marrying the two and bridging the two together, right? And it's about knowing what works and where you come from, you know, the foundations of cinema, and, you know, new ideas, new ways to express ourselves, new ways to edit, new ways to do things. You know, if there's anything that this world is doing now, it's making things easier, right? Technology doesn't necessarily progress us. It just makes things more convenient a lot now. So the danger is that you don't want to fall into the trap of convenience, because I think convenience is going to hinder your storytelling, because when you can do anything, you can just do anything. It's really creativity flourishes in limits, I think. You know, being limited in something and limiting yourself makes you creative, makes you find solutions that you would never normally do. Yeah. Right.
That's when new things happen. That's when you pioneer a new thing.
Yeah. That's when you grow, I guess.
And that, I mean, I would say that poses the challenge to you, because you're working on films right now and you have a film premiering soon. And I mean, we'll definitely have time to talk about that. And I mean, you know, if you're listening to this, we're kind of working on the I guess the behind the scenes, the bonus features of it already. We're gonna, you know, we're gonna have some stuff for that. Now, what's your plan? How, like, to take that challenge, and you're gonna come out with this short film now? What are you thinking about? Like, what's your thought process right now then?
As far as
like how to, like, I don't know. Are you gonna do like the premiere a certain way, or like? I mean, I don't know anymore. Well, how things happen.
Yeah, we've definitely had that conversation, me and some of the producers. There's actually a location in Santa Monica that resonated with the story we're trying to tell, and they offered up their location to have a premiere.
Oh snap!
So,
all right.
I mean, for me, yeah, I think the point is that I definitely want people to come together and watch this together. I would be really sad if I just released it and then, you know, I wasn't there in the room when people watched it, and I just got texts like, "Oh, saw the film," because that to me is,
well, that sounds like a YouTube post, like a published video on YouTube, like, hey, check it out.
Yeah, and that's not why I do things.
No, and the way you're working on the film now, it's definitely not that. It's not just a YouTube film. It's really a cinematic film, and I mean, I've seen it, or at least what is it, like a few edits later. Yeah, I've seen like the third. Just like the full third or fourth pass. Cut, third or fourth pass, and I mean, to see how much went into it. I mean, without getting in detail, obviously, like there's so much that goes into a film that I didn't even realize, and it's been in the works since September of last year.
I mean, and that's the question I have is that for me, I love filmmaking and I love the process of it, but does that spoil the movie going experience for you to know the machinations behind it, or do you just like to be fooled?
Well, I like to see all the workings of any art form, and the process of it is new, but that's what's intriguing to me. And to see the pathway that you took from writing it to filming it, and now like after the whole production is pretty much done, you're putting the finishing touches. It's intriguing to me to know how much has gone into something. Now, okay. I mean, I don't know if it's because I'm your brother, but I love bonus features in like behind the scenes footage. I love that stuff because it makes it even more intriguing to me to know that you can create something like this.
Yeah.
And it does make more sense to watch something and then to see the behind the scenes, because it ruins the magic when you watch if you see bonus features or you see behind the scenes and then you watch the film and you're like, oh, like I know how they did that. It kind of ruins the magician's surprise, kind of thing.
Yeah, you kind of get spoiled from the magic of it.
Yeah,
and that's the danger. I mean, like, to be honest, it's like I had this conversation with a friend, and he was just like, "Man, I feel bad for you." And I'm like, "Why?" Oh. He's like, "I would hate to like watch a movie and not enjoy it because I'm picking it apart, like." Constantly and trying to figure out how they were doing it.
Is it like that when you watch any movie now?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
I think I watch a film and I approach it as an audience member. And I think the best films make you forget that you're watching a film. To be honest, and I always tell people you don't understand a film until you've seen it twice. You go in the first time blind and you experience it. Then the second time you understand it because you know where they're going. You've had that it's almost you've had a conversation with the filmmaker to begin with. So I always try to watch films twice.
No, you would tell me that if in order for you to break down a film, like if you were really trying to dive in, you would watch it without sound, or you would watch later on, and you literally just see the visual, right? And you feel the emotions invoked just the visual alone. And that's if you were breaking down a film. But I would imagine they're just like I would, like because I produced music in the past, if a new album comes out, I just listen to it. You have that audience feeling where like you just listen to everything and enjoy it. There's a switch that you can have
definitely
when you're working on films and when you're just enjoying it.
Because you can enjoy music and just let it flow through you. And then there's times where you can really listen and like, man, this is what he's doing here. This is what's so great about it.
Yeah.
Because I think there's some people that it's not as important to them, but like us, like I feel like the creative process is so interesting to me.
Yeah.
When I first saw Hamilton, the first time I saw like a performance of one of the scenes of Hamilton, I was like, wow, it's moving. Like it moves me. It feels like, energetic. And when I started diving into how Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote Hamilton and the reasons why the choices he made, how he created that energy, that it just made that film that musical even more amazing to me.
Yeah.
Just to know that this wasn't by accident, that this was an artist who has mastered his craft, who loves his craft and is using it to express himself in top-notch form. And that is beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the beauty of Hamilton, but also more so the fact that Lin-Manuel Miranda is a master at his craft, in writing music and writing lyrics, and he's expressing himself, to the best of his abilities. And I think that's something that I always strive to do as a filmmaker, is that I always try to want to be the best, because not the best, filmmaker, but the best version of myself. Because I believe, we're all put on this world to share our experiences and connect with each other. And ultimately we have to communicate with each other. So if I choose filmmaking as my form of communication, I have to communicate the best way possible, because, things get lost in translation. People misinterpret things that we say, things that we do. So if whatever way you choose to communicate in this world, you have to be the best at that. If you choose to communicate through painting, be the best so that people can understand you, so that you can express yourself to your full best ability. right? Some people communicate through music. Some people communicate through writing. Some people communicate through action, through hard work, putting their head down and getting their hands dirty, building houses. However you choose to communicate who you are in this world, to show the world who you are, you owe it to yourself to do that in the best way possible. So that to me, that's why I love the creative process with things and understanding how things are made, because I admire people that have this dedication to their craft and their passion, because they're doing it, they're expressing themselves, and I'm listening and I'm hearing and I'm connecting. I love that.
And that's what makes us all relate and all connect. And that, like, we all have our own voices, and there is no one like you where we have one specific way that we experience the world and the way we influence the world or whatever it is. But we relate in that one thing, that we're all human, we're the humanity of us. And like you said, expressing it in whatever form you have.
I mean, it's so beautiful that, music, image, action, it transcends language, right? I don't, you don't speak every language in the world, but there's some images and there's some sounds that everyone knows, right?
True.
And, I'm sure he's listening right now, but, like Francis Batang Bakal, when I first met him, he didn't necessarily speak English as much. Sorry, true. Francis. But we connected through music.
Yeah, definitely.
I love to play guitar. He loved to play the drums.
Yeah. And
he didn't need to tell me in English words that he loved music, and he expressed himself through drums and music. And when I saw him playing the drums, I knew who he was, and I saw his heart, I saw his passion, and in a way, it kind of influenced me to do that with my guitar playing. I understood that I didn't need to tell people I love guitar. I didn't need to tell people I'm sad. I'll just play the guitar that way, because that's what he taught me too, with his passion in drumming. He put his heart into it, and when you do that, you really feel it. You really feel it. True. And when there's this great scene in Curious Case of Benjamin Button. There's that song he plays like on the piano, right?
Yeah.
And when he plays it, it's happy. It's the same notes, just dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And however you put yourself into the music, you feel it. And in the beginning he plays it, it's slow, but it's happy. But then at the end of his life, he's like a kid because he ages backwards.
Yeah.
And it's like dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And it's just that feeling. Wow.
True.
Wow. It's like you express yourself through that.
Even if it's the same notes on the piano, it's the way you play it. It's super intricate and it's deep. Mm-hmm. It does invoke emotion.
It transcends language.
That stroke is different.
Yeah. It transcends everything. It's a direct connection to our soul.
Yeah.
And I think that's where art comes in. That's where communication comes in, is that you can express yourself, through all types of ways. Yeah. Especially. And that's one thing in this world that we need, is to communicate. What you choose to communicate, though, that's up to you, though. Sometimes you want to communicate something else. True. But True. That's it.
And that's the danger of, it's a double-edged sword. I always talk about double-edged swords. It's like two sides of the coin. Like it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Well, it's a tool or a weapon.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I mean, if there's anything that anybody gets from this, it's whatever art form you have. It's you make sure that it's worth it, and you love doing it, and it makes us better people. Like, if you choose an art form, make sure it does move you forward, not just for yourself, but for everybody else. I mean, your family.
I guess I would pose that question to you. Like, how would you say you communicate best?
Oh man. Now, if you ask me when we were younger, or even when I was like a teenager, I would have never thought that I'd love to talk with people. Mm-hmm. I love to have conversations with people now, which is kind of why I decided to just do this podcast, because whether it be in church before, we would share and have moments like this when we can have real talk and deep talk, or whether it would be like on the basketball court, or at work, or with my patients as a nurse. I just love finding someone's heart based on their family, their experience in life. And when we talk about those types of things, that's where I get the most energy from that. And I decided to just record things now because I have some of the most interesting conversations with people. And I think back to those times when I had those conversations. I'm like, man, I wish this person could have expressed this to more people, because that's what makes them them. And that's what makes them special in this world. And their take on something, I learned from that, whether it be like a friend, a brother, or a patient. Like their life experience it's engulfed in everything that they have now and the way they're expressing themselves now. And that's why I don't want to say like the best way I can express myself now is through my words. It's really not that. I like to think that everywhere I go, I'm the same person. And I like to think the way I express myself now is just my presence in the room. And I mean, if you asked me before, it would be like probably music. But now I notice, and I guess it's because I work with a lot of like mental health patients. It's more of the words that aren't said, but when I see someone's eyes and I see someone's mannerisms, and I can feel them, I can read that. Instead of saying, you know, like I tell my students all the time, like, you know, when you approach people, like how would you say hi? You know, to know like who you're interacting with, you can ask someone, how are you doing? Or you can ask someone, how are you doing, really? And I think that brings up so much because you're able to break this barrier, that surface. And again, it relates to everything we talked about, like where I see a film and it's like, all right, cool. Like that's what I experienced. But asking like, why this film? Why that color? You know? Or even confronting someone like, you know, hey, when you said that earlier, this is how it seemed to me. Like, what's going on? You know, did I do something? You know, and that breaks down that first initial barrier that we have with people. And that's why I feel like the Broken Instruments podcast shaped up to be the way it is now, because I love having conversation with people and what makes people them.
In a weird way, I guess it's like we've had conversations like this where I think one of our best ways that we communicate is through empathy. Yeah. You know, showing empathy, having empathy for each other, you know, and that I definitely feel that, you know, you have this care of people and wanting to know not necessarily what makes them tick, but what are they feeling inside? Yeah. Right. And that's more important to you than what are they saying? Yeah, 100%. Because we don't say what we feel more often than not. So it's like when you have that hint of like his mannerisms are different, but he's saying, I'm happy. Yeah. You know, but his mannerisms and his eyes are telling you a different story. Yeah. You have the empathy to understand like, okay, there's something deeper in there, you know, and I wanted to know more about you, who you are, what makes you tick, you know? And I love doing that. I love relating with people. With connecting with whatever it is. We're very similar like that. Yeah. Connecting. And I don't want to say like it's a gift or whatever. It's I would say, I mean, sometimes it's a curse where I think too much sometimes, or I try to feel too much, where I know there's definitely situations where, I mean, you know, acquaintances and whatever, but you know, we don't have to always be serious. Like I fuck around a lot, and it's knowing in any given situation, what part of me needs to be here in that moment. And wherever I go, it's really, and I always go back to the dynamic of knowing when to be loud, knowing when to shut up, and knowing when it's right to bring up, you know, certain things, and knowing when it's okay to be vulnerable, knowing when it's okay to be, you know, strong in my approach. And I think with all of us now, like you said, communication's being lost, and I feel like empathy's being lost. We have to remember that we're all people and we all relate, and we need to take it easy on each other. And not just take it easy like, oh, like I'm gonna go easy on you. It's more of, hey man, allow people to be who they are. We're not all the same, but we have things that we relate about. Let's focus on those things, because once we're all comfortable with each other and we can have these conversations, that's when new things can start growing. But if you're like that guy, you know, like pruning everything, it's just like cutting things out, like, oh, like, no, I don't want to talk to them because they're like that, we're not going to get anywhere anymore. You know, and that's, I mean, for me, that's one of the most important things now, is to,
embrace and allow people to be who they are, and if anything, highlight that.
Yeah.
You know? And I mean, I know you're a regular on here, but you know, this is the beginning of whatever, and I'm gonna have so many more people, and people are welcome to be on the podcast because of that. That everybody has a story to tell.
Exactly. Everyone has a story, their own story, and it's almost like, how can you can never imagine getting everything out of life, with the limited time we have here. So it's like experiencing through stories through other people's eyes and seeing their perspective on their life. It only enriches yours, True. It helps you to understand.
True. And that's what we should be doing nowadays. And, like I said, like everybody is, you said it in the perfect words, what the Broken Instruments idea is. The Broken Instrument is, we all have a message to say, to leave on this earth, to experience. Yes, we're broken by whatever circumstances, whatever the world gave us, whatever we are destined to have. It's not the perfect life, but whatever instrument you are, whatever type, whether it be for music, whether it be for painting, express it. Be you. And make sure that you being you doesn't hinder someone else from being them.
Yeah.
We can all do that, and we can all allow each other and still flourish 100%. Me living shouldn't take away life from someone else.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
I really see things as like, it's, this world is a puzzle, this life is a puzzle, and we're all shaped different ways, but I think we all fit in this puzzle together. When this puzzle is complete, every piece fits in the right place. Yeah. But if you try to change your piece,
you try to force your fit into
a different place, or you want to change your shape into a square rather than having those weird little holes, then you're not going to fit into this place because you're not being who you were meant to be. And every puzzle piece, although they all look weird and they all look different, they all fit together in this one picture.
Yeah.
And, so it's like, just trust who you are, love who you are, and be who you are, and you'll fit right in, because we're all trying to figure this out together.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's when we can accept that we are different but the same. Then we can work together. We can understand each other. So
100%, man.
I mean, yeah, and that's what, it does not necessarily art. It's what communication really is.
Yeah.